What's up, everyone? Welcome to ClearTalk. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing the vice presidential debate that happened last night. I'm going to give kind of the overview, my thoughts on what happened with each candidate, the goods and bads and how they did, and kind of go over my opinion on what I think it will mean for the rest of the election process, if at all. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. And if you like the content here and stuff, consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. Please consider checking out my other channels and stuff over here, and the Discord there. Check all of them out. So please subscribe, like all that good stuff there as well. That's good content over there. And then of course, one-time donations there, or you can go to JMD Nation on Patreon and do the $3 a month there. So, all right. So the vice presidential debate. First thing I want to address, and I want to apologize, and this is about the debate, but not about the debate. If you noticed yesterday, I had, if you happen to notice, the few that might have paid attention, um, I had a scheduled live stream. It was supposed to start at 7:30 p.m. The debate was starting at 8. I'm on Central Time. So it was at 8 o'clock Central Time. So I was going to do a 30-minute pre-debate kind of show. We're going to go over the stuff in the Middle East, stuff like that, kind of give updates there. We were going to talk, I was going to talk about the hurricane, Helene, and stuff going on with that. Trump's new economic plan that he released, and different things just leading up to, and then of course giving like my first kind of initial thoughts, like how the debate was going to go, the way I was going to, way I thought it was going to go, and then I was going to do the debate, give my analysis throughout a little bit here and there. I was mostly just going to let that play out, and just sort of chime in here or there on certain questions or answers or certain things that were said. I might comment on in the breaks. I was going to do my little breakdown of that section or whatnot. Then at the end, give my post analysis. The whole rigmarole, the whole shebang, right? And I'm happy to announce that it went very well. Everything went great. I did good. I think it worked well. Um, and about 2.5 hours worth. There's only one problem. You didn't see it. Um, Apparently, I just straight up didn't go through all the steps of the live stream setup, and so it never technically went live. I apologize straight up. It was my fault. Uh, I mean, as far as my program here, it was live, and it looked live. It acted like it was live. But as far as YouTube was concerned, I didn't take a final step to make it go live. You see, for ClearTalk, I have to do it all manually. I have to set in the stream keys and stuff like that, which actually was the same as it was. It was already set up from the previous stream that I did when the presidential debate happened, the regular presidential debate happened. And I guess I was so like caught up in making sure that that one worked properly that I actually went through all the steps. But on this one, I kind of took advantage of the fact that, or I thought that it would just work, um, and didn't realize that I still needed to like confirm the live on YouTube. So unfortunately, it never went live. Now with JMDPLAY, which I stream to quite often, that is actually logged in by this program. So it just automatically, as soon as I hit live on here, it goes on there and I don't have to worry about it. I never even have to go to YouTube. But the problem with this program is that it will only do one setup like that. You can do other setups of like other places like Twitch or whatever, but you can't do multiple on the same platform, if that makes sense. I hate that. I wish they would fix it. I wish they would get it to where you could set up multiple logons, but they don't. So for ClearTalk, I have to do it manually, and that was the problem. So I apologize, and from now on, that will not happen again. I promise you that. I will make sure I make that step. So going on, we're already 5 minutes in. All right, so here's my thoughts. Before the debate, I I kind of I was honestly worried for Walz. I was worried for Walz because I knew going in that he had already addressed the fact that he was not a very comfortable debater. From what I understand, he isn't very experienced in debating at all, and but outside of that, he's just not comfortable in it. It's just not really his wheelhouse where he feels, you know, good. A lot of people were, and of course, we know Vance. He's got this sort of confidence about him, a little bit too confident sometimes, but he's got this confidence about him where he doesn't. He had already said he didn't have a problem, and he, uh, felt very comfortable. He was ready to go. Blah blah blah. We know that they both did some pretty heavy training beforehand, uh, particularly Walz. He had Pete Buttigieg helping him prepare and stuff like that. I kind of agree with Kyle Kalinski's point that it did seem like he was a little bit over prepared. He looks like especially at first, he was extremely nervous right out the gate. You could tell he was really trying to think through like all the things that they had went over or whatever on that particular talking, like that particular issue, which was about the Middle East. And so, and he, on top of that, that didn't help either. That was the first question because already doesn't he doesn't have a lot of experience in foreign policy either. So that was already kind of a big hit on him right out the gate. Him, for one, starting with the first question, it being on the Middle East, of foreign policy, and then secondly, well, thirdly, rather, I guess, that he already wasn't comfortable in debating. So right out the gate, it was like the worst case scenario for him, particularly. Uh, he did not look good in that first question. He answered it fine, technically, because he gave basically just the common response that a Democrat would give. It wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't, nothing on this subject was going to be on that particular subject was going to be my cup of tea, especially, I mean, I knew neither one of them was going to answer it the way I would have liked them to answer it. And he probably didn't answer it the way he technically would have wanted to answer it. He was answering it the way Kamala Harris and her team would want him to answer it. And keep that in mind. You have to understand the VPs are there to basically back up and support the person on the top of the ticket. That's what they're there for. They're to back them up. They can sort of give their their line of thought, but it ultimately has to be in line with whoever's above them. Okay. And that goes for JD Vance as well. And that's something that caught him several times too, and it was clear. Okay. This is the problem, I think, for both of these VPs, is that they, ultimately have to abide by which all do, but they have to abide by their particular top ticket candidates. So yeah, I don't think he answered it. I don't know. I don't think he answered it the way he would have personally answered it if he was just asked a question and it didn't matter what he said. He gave the typical Democratic answer. See that how you want. It is what it is. I don't agree with that, but it's not his fault. I don't view it as his fault. So Vance gave their typical one, so it didn't matter. Anyways, Vance straight out the gate, cool as a cucumber, smooth. He was on top of his um, chill, calm, just charismatic way about him. I did make a mention, there was, I've heard some people try to say that he's not very charismatic, and I guess that to some degree you could see that. Uh, I mean, I could see that maybe being some people's point of view, and maybe he has been like that in certain instances with like interviews and stuff where he's gotten a little moody. But last night he had his charisma tune turned up fairly well. He was, like I said, he pretty much, it looked like his strategy. That's what I'm. Let me address that. Let me address that real quick. Both of them strategy. What it looked like. Like I said, he seemed perfectly fine. Walz was over prepared, but once he kind of got out of his head and uh, got going throughout the rest of the questions more and more, especially through the next two or three questions, his confidence came to him. And when he stopped worrying about it, seemed like at some point he stopped even really worrying about the like prepared answers, and he just sort of started, and there was several times where it felt like he straight up was off the cuff, and that's where he performs, that's where he feels comfortable. He just likes to spit, riff, go on it. And I think that's where he played in and was at his strongest. Strategies, right? Okay, so I feel that, okay, I'll go with Waltz. Waltz, we knew, we had heard previously that his strategy was going to basically direct a lot of stuff, or a lot of the, if you want to say, attacks towards Trump, not necessarily Vance. And for the most part, he kind of did that. But one additional thing that I felt like he did was he, in several answers, he would take the time to some degree address in a way to divide them, like stating where he would agree with JD's take on something to at least a degree, even though they might not completely agree on how to handle it, like how to fix it. He would agree that there was on the issues, and that they're both agreeing on that there is certain issues in certain areas, but he just would disagree on, like, how to fix it. But he would address it like, yes, I agree that you want to fix this and that you see it, and you have a, uh, but the one above you, the one that's at the top of the ticket, does not. He doesn't agree with it. He's the one that's the problem. And he would kind of do that to where he was basically forcing JD to kind of take Trump's, opinion, or answer to something, or argument for something, and his, and try to find a way to mesh them together. Because there are some issues where JD and Trump don't completely blend, right? We know that. And so that did put JD in a bit of a pickle a few times throughout the debate, trying to find a way to slime his little wordplay around to make it sound like they meshed and that it made sense. So that was something that I felt that he did fairly well quite a few times, and it worked in his benefit, I think, on most of those times. Um, JD's strategy seemed to be focus on Kamala, like make everything a Kamala issue instead of a Biden Kamala issue. It was everything that had to do with the Biden administration was Kamala's administration, and it was addressed that way. It was I'm not even sure he ever even said Biden's name. I don't. I'm not even recalling whether he actually said Biden's name at any point. So everything was in Kamala, and then on top of that, every single issue, very much like Trump did in the presidential debate, he would find a way to tie it back to immigration. Uh, that seemed to be like his big stomping point there. He's almost seemed to turn almost everything back around to immigration in some way. Every issue in America, in some way, or form, or fashion, is a as a product of immigration. Um, and so that seemed to be his strategy. And of course, looking like trying to make himself come off as cool and smooth as he could and not just look weird or out of his mind like Trump, which I think he did a fairly good job of. He made himself seem reasonable, even in times, many times actually, to some degree, weirdly, finding himself almost advocating for um, Walz's point. It was very weird. Now we we know that he previously was actually a Democratic, like back in his early years, and he just somehow found his way loop de loop into the Republican sphere and changed some of his views. And so he has this sort of centrist sex part of him that I feel that where he can understand the other one's argument and even to some degree find some kind of like center ground in it, but he also knows how to play his words into like mold his solution for the issue, right? On in a right wing perspective. So he does, he did pretty well. I actually would have to say he did well. I don't think he did better than I thought he would do, but he just did well. He did what he was supposed to do. Not look crazy, not look weird. There was no weird statements really. Yes, he was very slimy with some of the way he worded stuff. He actually did a lot of having to fix and rewrite history, rewrite Trump history, rewrite some of his own history, in fact. Uh, try to make some of what Trump has said seem reasonable and understanding by completely rewording it in what he way he would explain what Trump was trying to say, even though Trump did not say that. So yeah, there was a lot of that, very much so, all the way through. Um, so yeah, for the most part, if I was, they both had good parts. They both had some bad sections. Uh, JD Vance had issues on abortion majorly. He had issues with at the very end with Gen 6 discussion. There was a moment where Waltz and asked about, which was a very stupid question, and I don't understand the point of it. He was asked about his trips to China, and that he claimed at one point that he was there at a specific date that had to do with a celebrate, like a parade kind of celebration thing in Hong Kong, and then it come to find out that he actually wasn't there during that time, that he was like a month or two later. I think it was June or July that this happens, and he actually wasn't there till August. So they were asking him to like talk about that discrepancy and why that he would basically just saying, you appears that you lied, why did you lie, kind of thing. And in this same thing is where they asked JD about him flip flopping on stuff, particularly Trump. But and JD gave a fairly excusable answer there, although I think it was BS. But he gave an answer well enough to appease the answer, the question. Um, and this is where Walz tried to do a short kind of summary of him to kind of identify who he was for people who may not know, I guess. And that played quickly into him in the story of why he was even in China. Uh, he basically come out that it's basically that he misspoke. Which, like I said, I don't even understand the question. It was kind of a stupid question. Like, what does it even matter that he said that he was there? He said that he was in Baghdad or whatever, Hong Kong or whichever one it was, not Baghdad, but Bangkok or Hong Kong one. Um, uh, and apparently this was in reference with somebody, I would assume an interview or something where this particular event was being discussed. I'm assuming. I haven't seen where that was, but the way it come off, it's like this was for some reason being discussed, this event. He was like, and he made some kind of comment, yeah, I was in there while that was going on. It didn't necessarily come off like he was saying that he was literally at that event, but that he was just in Hong Kong or Bangkok or whatever, wherever it is. So it seems very silly. And it's like, and he's been there like 20 something times. So it's like, it's that many times you've been there. You may, for some reason, maybe you just thought you were there at that time. Maybe you mistaken what month you were there or whatever. Like, it just seems like a very stupid, just tedious, petty question to be asked. Like, for you. And if that is the worst lie that they could find on him to question him on, just proves how much of a good, honest guy he really is. I mean, if that's the only thing you could come up with, and that's what he quite frankly come off through this entire debate. It was that he genuinely, and I genuinely think he is just a straight up, just decent, good guy. As a matter of fact, it even seemed like he had almost felt shocked that he was found in a lie. Like it just seemed like he has a hard time even lying. Like he's just not a liar. He like I said, the one thing that I did say during that stream that you didn't see was that he comes off to me kind of like a Bernie Sanders to a degree, not necessarily policy wise, although to some degree even policy wise, but I'm just talking about the way he comes off characteristically, personality wise. He kind of comes off that way, just a genuinely good guy, honest guy who uh, is pretty steadfast in his ideas and whatnot, but and just genuinely wants good for people. Like that's just the way he comes off, and that's the way he came off in this debate to me. JD Vance also tried to come off kind of like that, but we all know he's a bit slimy. I mean, he's a bit of a uh, opportunist. That's the reason why at one point he was even addressing how he RFK and Tulsi, of course, and that's like, yeah, well, like he likes them or they like him and whatnot. It's like, well, of course they do. They're opportunists as well. So, um, duh, y'all all get along. Anyways, so okay, that's how they come off. That was their bad spots. Sorry, that was their particularly bad sections. But Vance's clearly come off way worse because, of course, abortion is a major issue for the Republican Party. They just have nothing good here on that. He tried to play into the fact that him and Trump were trying, like, he even admitted weirdly that the Republican Party had a problem here with that particular subject and that they needed to do better to gain people's respect for them, or to get the respect back from the people. Um, and I'm sorry, but that's just not gonna happen. It's just not. Sorry, JD. That ship has sailed on y'all. There's no coming back on that one. But Yeah, and then of course the Jan 6 thing was a complete fallout, uh, and where he would not even admit that Trump lost. He completely sidestepped it and started talking about censorship, which was ridiculous. Uh, Walz had him in a corner. That was the last question, and that's the way it ended the debate. And Walz ate him alive on that one. Uh, you know, like he basically like let me put it simply, because it was actually Walsh who questioned him. You normally don't see too much, or you it's a risk for one to turn to the other and ask a question outside of the moderators asking questions. And he literally turned to JD and questioned, "Do you believe he won the lost the election?" And JD would not answer it. He immediately, "I'm focused on the future. Can you explain to me why blah 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 with censorship?" And the famous, going to be famous line come out of Wallace's mouth. That is a damning non-answer. And it was a damning non-answer. Um, and then turned around and he further, once Walsh got the mic back and continued talking through this, brought up the fact that Pence did what he did, or not doing what they wanted him to do, and that was the reason why Pence was not on that stage last night. Oh, it was such a sweet thing to say, because that literally is the only reason why Vance is on that stage. It's the only reason why Vance is VP is because he quite literally said that he would not have done what Pence did, that he would have stopped that process. That's the reason why he is VP. That's the reason why Trump picked him. It was so sweetly placed in there. Um, and uh, if if either one of them, if ultimately, okay, let me give my final analysis. Ultimately, I don't think it matters. The VP is not important enough for most people to be that concerned about it. But to the extent that it is, I don't necessarily think either one won. I would say that it was a toss up. Uh, Vance did well enough to keep himself from looking weird. Like I said, he was smooth, but he lied over and over and over again in his slimy wordsmith ways. Um, and I feel that up to the point of that last question, he actually answered things fairly smoothly and without too much repercussion back on himself. Like, it didn't, like, in a way that even though he was lying, it didn't sound like he was lying. But the January 6th question, that put him under. That was a big blow on him. Walz started out rough, got himself together, especially in the second half, was very strong, and had him on the last question. Uh, Doing well enough that, being the underdog, the least experienced, the least comfortable in that situation, to hang in, get his strength up, get his confidence going, and really plow through, improving as he went. Where I don't necessarily I think Vance started strong, but throughout the debate kind of lost himself a little bit more and more and more. Like, he just little by little lost a little bit of his flow, of his, you know, uh, until we got to the Jan 6, and it was down from there. Um, but like I said, in saying that, I don't think either one necessarily won. I feel that depending upon what your issue is, your issue concern is, you know, depending on what those are, someone might say that Vance won, and you know that's fine. And depending upon what another person's concerns are, you would say that Walz won. Um, in the and I would say if either one of them could be argued that they won, I personally would say Walz just because of the last question. I think ending out the debate on that question and the way Vance just ran from it, and the fact that if anybody, for those who actually stuck through to the end of that debate, for the most part, would have been people who I think are the undecided. I feel like most people, because on average, most people don't watch any more than about 20 to 30 minutes of the debate on average. You have some that will last through the first half, but then after this into the second half, viewership tremendously drops. Um, I would argue that for the most part, those first 20, 30 minutes, maybe even the first half, are going to be hardcore one side or the other. People who've already made up their mind, they just wanted to view in for a minute to see how their guy was doing, right? Republicans would have jumped in, been like, "Oh yeah, he's strong. He's spitting his shit. He's good, man. We're good. This is gonna be awesome." And they dipped out. Uh, if you're a Democrat, you're jumping in, going, "Yeah, he seems a little nervous, but I think he's gonna be okay." Especially if you got through the next couple questions, like, "Yeah, he's getting himself going. Uh, I don't think it's going to really matter though, but I mean, we're not that concerned about it." I think as they're going to drop, they're probably dropped out thinking, well, whatever, it's not that big a deal. He's doing good enough. Drop out. Um, for those that got all the way to the end, I think they were most likely, like I said, those that are undecided. And what I mean by undecided, I mean, like I've said before, those that are undecided at this point are people who are deciding whether to vote for Kamala or not vote at all. At this point, I honestly do not believe you cannot prove to me. You'd have to come up with some serious evidence to prove to me that Trump has any gain at this point. I would argue that if anything, Trump only has loss available to him, not gain. I think he peaked a long time ago. So this is basically Kamala's race to win or lose. Um, and so yeah, I think that that's what it comes down to. And ending on January 6th and what happened there in that question and that answer, I feel like a lot of people that were undecided would have been reminded of what Trump did there. And a lot of undecided people probably most likely don't like the whole uh, election denialism and the trying to steal the election kind of stuff. They don't care for that. And so they were probably reminded and be like, you know what? Yeah, uh, yeah, I might be. I probably should vote for Kamala on this. Um, so I feel like towards that point, anybody that was still hanging in walked away from that more thinking Walz won that. Um, from what I saw in polls afterwards, it appeared that the polls were somewhat mixed as far as winners concerned. Some polls had uh, JD winning by 1 or 2 points. Uh, there was a couple of polls I think that had Walz winning by maybe 1 point or a half point, like whatever, 1 point I think. But for the most part, it was basically toss up. A good bit of the poll was people just saying they both tied. The one bigger thing though was the popularity change. Uh, both candidates seem to gain popularity. Uh, like I said, JD, he looked more reasonable. He looked more understanding. He looked more, cool and collected and didn't sound weird, didn't say any crazy shit. So, where he has previously, he's been considered the least popular of all four candidates in the race. And he was already underwater, like 22, 23 points or something. Uh, so he actually gained to like a -3. So he's still underwater, but he's around -3, or like 47%. Uh, Walz was already up. Walz was already up, I think, like 11, 12%. And he jumped up to like 20% positive in popularity. So his popularity is sitting, depending upon which one you're looking at, in the high 60s, like 67, 68 to like 72, something like that. Um, so yeah, he's highly popular, the most popular of the four. Because like I said, he's just a straight up cool, simple, likable guy that you don't think he doesn't come off as he's lying to you or anything like that. And it's probably because he's not. He doesn't really, he doesn't look like he lies. He doesn't look like he can lie, if I'm being honest. Like, uh, I just feel like he's just a genuine guy. You know, for better or for worse, and probably on him, maybe even worse at sometimes. But, you know, it is what it is. So yeah, popularity, both of them seem to come up. But it's like I said, ultimately, I don't really think this is going to tip the scale in any way. I mean, if anybody got helped, maybe Kamala might get a bump or so. How long that lasts, though, I don't know. Especially with the situations going on over in the Middle East, particularly. I think if something isn't happening in that pretty soon, that shit's gonna hit the fan and it's going to affect the election majorly, potentially, anyways. So, um, my suggestion to Kamala is to come out very soon against stuff. I don't see it happening, and they probably would think that was a like uh, campaign killer or something. I don't think so. I think if she doesn't, then the events happening over there is going to be her campaign killer. But hey, I'm pretty sure she's not listening to me, so uh, I don't know that she's going to get that message. But if you are able to give her that message, might want to do that. So, anyways, thank you very much. That's pretty much my analysis. It was a pretty good debate. It was a cordial, like old fashioned debate, pre 2016 debate, pre Donald Trump debate, where there were niceties going. And that was what some people were making a big deal of, that they were too nice to each other, actually complimenting each other and being cool with each other for the most, like, and it's like, dude, that was the way debates are supposed to be, or that they were, anyways. They were boring for the most part. That one was boring for the most part, you know. And like, yeah, it was annoying at some points where they were sitting there because both of them did it. They, I actually agree with you on that, and I think we want to, we want to fix this, but this is how, this guy. Both of them did that. It wasn't just Walz. JD did it as well. Like I said, he often, when I said he often, even quite a few times, seemed like he was actually agreeing and advocating for Walz's point. Like it was like weird. But that's welcome to pre-Trump debates. If you've never seen one, that was it. That's a regular debate. Decorum, respect, professionalism. Quite frankly, I would say uh, JD did give me a different opinion of him. I don't like his policies and his ideas at all. Like they're completely against. I don't agree with them. But him as a person, or him as his personality, or him, or no. Him as a politician. Let me make this clear. Him as a politician. I honestly think he will wind up being a good politician for the Republican Party. I think that he basically tonight seemed like to me he was giving his resume for 28. Quite frankly, in my opinion, he probably should be the one at the top of the ticket right now instead of Trump. I think Trump is a disability for the Republican Party because he, like I said, he has no gain now. What he has is what he has. And what he has will not sustain if Kamala is able to continue her pace. Like I said, there are other external issues that might come to bite Kamala in the ass. But Trump has no more game. He has been peaked for a long time. So, honestly, I think that's been, it's pretty much understood that he is a liability to the Republican Party, and he's been a risk. But there wasn't a candidate good enough to put up against him. But I would actually argue after last night that JD Vance would have been a good one. He might have actually been able, he was certainly better than anyone that previously attempted. DeSantis, they ain't got shit on JD. JD would eat him alive in a debate. None of them. So yeah, y'all probably need to keep working on him, and he would be a viable candidate. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I don't agree with him on practically anything. But I'm just saying for the Republican Party to get to get you where you really want to be, but in a way that's more sophisticated and more appealing. He's your guy. And for me, Walz is mine. I really hope that, and of course, I hope Kamala, well, I hope Kamala gets it, mostly just because I don't want Trump in there, but also because I want to see how Tim Walz can grow. I want to see into what direction he grows. Whether he keeps himself in his and stays with his like opinions and his values, or he gets changed. Because if he stays in his values, I think he would be great for the Democratic future. But anyways, thank you very much. That was the debate coverage. I am sorry that I didn't get the live stream up. But like I said, that will not happen again. Anyways, thank you very much for joining me. If you like this content, like, share, like I said, comment below. Let me know what you think, how you think the debate went, who you think won, maybe, if either one, their goods or bads, and whether or not you think it affected anything, let me know all that good stuff. And until next time, peace, clear talk, I'm out.